So what you'll see is you've got all of my ingredients on this side of the workbench and all of the equipment on the other side of the workbench. So when I read through my ingredients, all I'm going to do is just point. That's all we're doing. This is checklisting. We're not worrying about volumes or amounts yet. Great. Okay. So you'll need 2 cans of black beans. 2 cans of black beans. Now, I will say that this recipe will work with beef mince or pork mince or any kind of meat mince. Just using, instead of using your black beans, you can use 500 grams of mince. So that's, everything else is the same, but if you want to change that, you most certainly can. All right, so you'll need some black beans, you need some olive oil, you need some capsicum, some onion, some garlic. Where's my garlic? Down there. Some cumin, some chili if you use it. You can always add chili later. Some garlic powder if you want to. That's a little bit of an optional. I can't see why you would have garlic powder and garlic paste, but that's okay. Some paprika, some breadcrumbs, some feta cheese, some eggs, some Worcestershire sauce. If you want to use HP or soy, you can do that as well. And some tomato sauce, mayo, barbecue sauce, all of the extras. Great. And some salt and pepper. Brilliant. So we're going to start with this recipe. And you'll need measuring cups and measuring spoons, a baking tray, a saucepan, a large bowl, a food processor, or if you don't have a food processor, you can use just a big Ziploc bag, some baking paper, a fork, some foil, and some paper towel. Great. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is preheat our oven to 160 degrees, 160 degrees. Then I'm going to put my baking paper onto my baking tray. Baking paper onto your baking tray. And I've got my black beans here. And I'm going to take my, just take like 2 sheets of paper towel and just give them a bit of a toss in the bowl, just to dry them out a little bit more. Like literally 30 seconds, oops, 30 seconds. And then once you've done that, I'm going to spread them over my tray. I'm spreading them so that they're not too bunched up. I don't want them bunched up, I want them spread out. Great. And then we're going to pop them into the oven with a timer of 15 minutes. All we're doing here is drying them out a little bit, and this will give them a nice little bit of body. All right. The next thing that we're going to do is saute our onion, peppers and garlic, or peppers is capsicum in Australia. If you haven't chopped up, has anyone not chopped up? Just pop it into the, I'm going to turn my stove on. medium heat. And we're going to saute our onion and garlic and capsicum. Saute our onion, garlic, and capsicum. I'm not using capsicum today. Actually, I might do in medium to low heat. And I always add my onion first, because that just takes the pan down. We don't want burnt garlic. Don't want burnt garlic. Wooden spoon, you can use tongs, you can use whatever. I'm going to add my onion. And give it. All we're wanting is for this to become translucent. Fantastic. And now I'm going to add my garlic. Oh, that smells amazing. And you can add your capsicum. Capsicum has started to cook down a bit. You can take it off the heat straight away. Excellent. I've added my onion, peppers, and garlic to a bowl. And we're at step 5. We're at step 5. So we've cooked up those veggies. And then the recipe says we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of cumin. One and a half teaspoons of cumin. Now, you'll see that I always measure at the side so that I don't end up with accidentally popping things into my bowl. And I'm double checking that I've got the right measuring spoon. So it says 1.5 teaspoons of cumin. 1.5 teaspoons of cumin. If you love cumin, you could always add a little bit more. There are some things that have to be exact, and there are other things that it doesn't matter. When it comes to flavouring, you can add a little bit more. 1.5 teaspoons of cumin. If you're adding chili, you can add 1 teaspoon of chili powder. 1 teaspoon of chili powder. The recipe says 1/4 teaspoon of smoked paprika. Now, for me, that's not enough because I love paprika. So I'll add 1 teaspoon. And I think with the amount of cumin that we added, I'm going to adjust that measurement to 1 teaspoon. 1 teaspoon of paprika. So that's the first change you might want to make on your recipe. You might want to note 1 teaspoon. I'm changing that. That's ridiculous in my mind. 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, half a cup of breadcrumbs, next time. So it's half a teaspoon of garlic powder. And then we're going to add half a cup of crumbled feta cheese. So I've measured mine out, and then I'm going to crumble up my feta. So this is going to add a little bit of body and some beautiful saltiness. And if you've never eaten feta cheese before, have a little bit of it. Cooking is about trying new things. And there are different types of feta cheese as well. So there is Greek feta, there is Danish feta. And Danish feta is very creamy and a lot whiter. Excellent, just so that you've looked at them. The next thing we're going to do is add our eggs. And if you've been to a class before of mine, you'll know that I'll always crack my eggs into a separate bowl before I add them to the main bowl. And the reason I do that is just so that if I accidentally crack some shell, it's so much easier to fish it out of a little bowl. Also, if you've got a rotten egg, not that that happens very often, but if you get eggs from a farmer, so crack it separately and then add it to your mixture. 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. And again, measure it at the side, don't measure it over the top. You can use HP if you've got HP, right? Or you can use just the same amount of barbecue sauce. Right at the back of my that's 2 tablespoons of tomato or barbecue sauce. And then we're going to add a pinch of salt. Now, if you're not sure how much a pinch is, because it's a little bit of a funny measure, I measure out 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. And if you've got that measure. So in mine, it's a tiny little piece. It's quite generous. 1/8 of a teaspoon, or a nice generous amount. And the same for pepper. So I would do a 1/4 of a teaspoon of pepper. Or if you've got a pepper grinder, I would grind 4 grinds of your pepper grinder. Now, if you've got a food processor, I want you to put all of your ingredients into the food processor. If you've got a Thermomix, the same thing. And then we're going to add our beans in a minute. And I'm going to add them to the food processor as well. If you've got any little residual beans, add those. Remember, you'll need a tea towel because your tray will be super, super hot. I'm looking for the word. Then you can pulse all of your mixture together. Now, my food processor has had a little die, so I'm going to mash mine just manually, but add everything together and blitz it. Don't blitz it so much that it ends up like a yucky paste. All we're doing is adding them so that they are a nice uniform mixture. So we're pulsing it, we're not running it on full speed. All we're wanting it to do is come together. Right, now it should come together in so that you'll be able to pick it up and mold it together. Mold it together. If it doesn't, you might need to add something to make it a little bit more secure. So you could add a quarter of a cup of oats, if your mixture doesn't come together like this. So we're wanting them to be, we're not going to form them right now, but that's kind of the vibe that we're after. How's yours, Mia? What is it now? 5 o'clock. Yeah, you can turn your oven off. Turn your oven off. Great. Turn your oven off. Okay, we're going to, the next thing we're going to do is start caramelizing our onions. Leave your mixture. It's going to get a little bit more firm as it sits there. So I'm going to move my mixture out of the way. Move my mixture out of the way. And then we're going to swap to the caramelized onion recipe. And this can cook very nicely in the background. So we're swapping to our caramelized onions. The key to this recipe is low heat, slow and low, slow and low. What we're going to do is put it onto a low heat. And this might take 30, it might take about 30 minutes. I'm going to turn my oven, my stove top on. You can cook this in a saucepan, but if you've got a wide fry pan, it's going to be the best. Okay, I've got my fry pan on and it's over a low heat, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And then pretty much straight away, I'm going to add my onions. I just discovered I've got a jaggy one in there. All right, I don't want it that fine at all. I don't want to hear too much sizzling. Add a quarter of a teaspoon of salt. Quarter of a teaspoon of salt. And what we're doing at the moment is literally just breaking our onions up. If you haven't done that already, this is over a really low heat because it's going to cook over a low heat for about half an hour. Fries, we're going to prepare them now. If you've already chopped yours up, great. If you haven't, I'm going to show you. I don't even peel mine. I chop off the end. Chop off the end. And if you need help doing this, ask for help. I'm just pressing down like I've got my sweet potato, and then I'm pressing down, cutting it in half. The most important thing with potatoes and sweet potato, but cutting anything, is making sure that whatever you're cutting is nice and stable. Otherwise, if you're trying to cut it and it's on a round and it's going to rock around, and then you're going to have an accident. I'm chopping up this guy's a bit too big. You can put your fries as big, small as you want. The idea, though, is that they're all pretty much the same width, because then they'll cook at the same time. Otherwise, you'll have some of them overdone. Sweet potatoes chopped up. We're going to add 1 tablespoon of corn flour. 1 tablespoon of corn flour. This is going to give them just a little bit of crispiness on the outside. 1 tablespoon of corn flour. If you find yourself having a little panic that you're running behind, just walk away for 2 minutes, come back, read where you're at, check in with me to see where we're at. And usually you're like 1 step behind. So we've got our sweet potatoes and 1 tablespoon of corn flour. 1 tablespoon of corn flour. And then half a teaspoon of salt. Half a teaspoon of salt. And I suggest that you sprinkle it, don't just dump it, so that it will move around more. Every couple of minutes, I'm just giving my my caramelized onions a bit of a stir. Make sure that the edges are getting incorporated as well. All right, 1 tablespoon of corn flour, half a teaspoon of sea salt, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, two tablespoons of olive oil. And if you want to, you can add extra spices. So the recipe suggests black pepper, cayenne pepper, which is like a chili sauce, and garlic powder. To be honest, I'm just going to add a little bit of cracked pepper, and I think that's enough. And then, so what did I say? A couple of cracks of cracked pepper, and then I'm going to use my hands. You can use a pair of tongs if you want to. I'm going to toss all of those ingredients through the sweet potato. And you can do the same thing. When Mia taught this the other day, she had a couple of kids just using normal potatoes. So you can do this with any kind of potato. Regular potatoes will take longer to cook. That's the only thing. So we're really looking for the corn flour to be a little bit absorbed by that. I'm going to use the same baking paper that I used for the black beans. You don't have to, but for me, I can't see that there's any reason why you wouldn't. And I'm going to stretch it, toss it out, move it around. I'm going to use that oil as well, because that's got the flavour as well as the oil. And I'm stretching it out or spreading it out so that it's on a single layer and not bunched up, because otherwise it will take longer to cook. You might need to put it out on 2 trays, depending on how many sweet potatoes you used. So either 2 trays, I've just got enough for 1, I think. Fantastic. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. Great. Now, what is it? 5:21. You can put your trays to the side for the moment because we're not going to cook them quite yet. These are my onions. They're still clear. That's what I want. And they're just starting to get that nice little clear bit there. That's good. Low and slow, low temperature, slow cooking. That's what we're after. So I'm going to pop them back on the element. I wanted to show you what mine looked like. All right, where are we at? We've got our sweet potato chips on the go. We've got our caramelised onions on the go. We've made our burgers. What we need to do now that our burgers have sat and sort of absorbed for a little while, we're going to get, you can either use a serving tray or a baking tray. There are a couple of ways that you can cook your burgers. You can cook them on the barbecue. I actually don't suggest cooking them on the barbecue because it's good for meat, but these are a little bit softer, and I suggest that you cook them in the fry pan. That would be the ideal option. You could put them into the oven. I cooked them last time in the oven. I didn't really love that. You could try it. Like if you're cooking other things, you could try them on the barbecue. I just find that they tend to kind of burn on the bottom and fall apart a bit. So, okay, now what we're going to do is form our patties. So a patty is the shape. And you don't want them to be like a meatball. You do want them to be just like a burger, nice and flat, so that when you go to cook them, they're not going to take very long at all. And you can make, and they're not going to shrivel because again, you know how we might make a big meat burger and then you put them onto the hot plate and they shrivel down. Well, that won't happen with these guys. Great. Fantastic. Look at those. They look amazing. All right. You can cover them with some cling wrap if you want. If you don't, depending on what's in your fridge, cover them with some cling wrap, pop them into the fridge for 10 minutes. So pop your timer on for 10 minutes. It's now time to add our brown sugar to the caramelized onions. Add your brown sugar, and that is, let me go back to it, 2 tablespoons of brown onion, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, the one that you measured out before, and then start with 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar. If you don't have balsamic vinegar, you could use red wine vinegar. What have I got? Balsamic? We don't always have every single ingredient, so you'll find that I use the term swappable. What can we swap? Oh, so great. So what we've done there is added sweet and sour. Sweet and sour. Oh, so good. And then we're going to put it back onto the element that we just took it off. And again, nice and low for another 10 minutes. And then it's going to go sticky and caramelize it. All right, so pop it back again. What have I got? Excellent. So guacamole, you will need 2 to 3 avocados, a mango, tomato, lime. I've got lemons that I used in some classes yesterday, some salt, and some spring onion or coriander. Fabulous. All right. Guacamole. I've got my guacamole in my hand, my avocado. My avocado is in my hand, and I'm going to run the knife down, and then I'm turning the avocado as I go. And I spin it, open it up, beautiful, and then I'm going to push the seed out. In theory, that should work. I've got a dessert spoon, and I'm going to run my dessert spoon underneath and get the flesh out. Beautiful. And then do the other one. So avocado in my hand, running my knife around slowly, only what you can manage. And I know that choosing an avocado is always such a tricky thing. I'm just pushing my seed out from behind. Have a look at your onions once you've done a couple of avocados, just to make sure it's not getting too sticky on the bottom. Just a little avocado before. Now, some people love mashy guacamole. Some people like more rustic. I don't like the smooth one. I like it sort of a little bit chunky. So I've given my onions a nice little stir. If you want to, you can have a taste of your caramelized onions to see if you're happy with the flavor. Go and see, is it what you like, or do you need to add that extra tablespoon of balsamic vinegar? So think you've got sweet and you had sour. So keep in mind it's going to be super hot. I'm just going to take a little piece. I can already smell mine is vinegary enough. I'm actually going to add another tablespoon. It's your caramelized onion, so you make it the way you like it. Lid's back on. Telling myself, really. Mixing that around. Whoa. And you'll find after 10 minutes or so, it'll just start, oh yeah, that's a better colour already. See how it's kind of collapsed down? That's what we're after. Okay, what have I got? Avocado, done. Mango. My dad, God love him, has never had a mango in his life. So he says, I just can't, I said, nah, can't do it. He's 83 and he's never had a mango. I just don't understand. But my mum, she doesn't like strawberries, which I still don't understand myself. And we grew up in the Blue Mountains, and we grew all sorts of different kinds of fruit trees, and so we had lots of things, but there was a couple of things my mum and dad went, yeah, no, that's just not our vibe. Okay, this is the way I do my mango. There is no wrong way. There's all sorts of ways. So I chopped down the side of the seed. So I got the seed bit in the middle. And then I'm taking half of my mango and very carefully I'm making diced shapes. Pretty much the same as what we did with the avocado. Be careful of your finger. And I'm going to take my spoon and start scooping it out. If you want to chop it out first in one big lump and then dice it up, you can do it that way. It's tricky and sticky, but yum. So this one I'm going to use my spoon and run all the way around the edge, just as a different way. Adding that in there. If you want to add tomato, you can add tomato. You don't have to add the tomato. It says 1 small tomato. I'm going to use half, slicing and dicing. Slicing and dicing. Right. Slicing and dicing our tomato. If you want to use a jalapeno, you can do that. Put chili in, great. If you don't want to, that's fine. Oh, I thought I heard rain. So we've got 2 to 3 avocados, a mango, half a tomato, you can use a full tomato. There's no wrong way with this recipe. This is all about what you like. I'm going to add my half a lemon. Actually, I'm going to add a full lemon. You can add lime. It's always got a nicer tropical feel, but I used these yesterday for a class. So I just squeeze my lemon over the top of my hands, and that catches the seeds. Squeezing. You can see I've caught all those seeds there. And then you can start mixing it up. Oh, so good. If you want to, slice up some coriander and shallot, you can do that. I'm just adding a little bit. Fantastic. Great. How tropical does that look? And I've got a and then you can either mash it, if you want to mash it. You want to mix all of your ingredients together. My big pieces of avocado. And I'm just using my fork. You can use a potato masher if you want to do that. Right. And then we're going to taste it. So we go, once you've got all of your ingredients mixed together, we're going to taste, and then we're going to add some salt. I'm breaking up all of my mangoes that wasn't broken up. Mix mine together. I'm not going to serve in this dish. This is like a mixing dish. I'm going to add half a teaspoon of salt and then mix it around again. And then I'm going to taste it. And when we taste things, it's what you like. So you might think, oh, it needs a little bit more salt. I'm just going to grab this. Enough salt for me. Yum, yum. Cooking, tasting, cooking, tasting. Great. That is all done. I'm going to keep them, just give them a little bit more firmness and keep their shape. I'm adding half a tablespoon of oil. Got my tongs. Oh, here we go. Oh, this is going to be good. You'll need an egg lifter to lift them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll add one more. Right. So our fries, our oven temperature is on 225 degrees. Watch that to see when your preheat temperature turns off. Because the oven's already been on, it won't take as long. All right, so I'm going to take mine out while I brown the others. So I don't want to overcook them. I don't want brown burgers. Perfect. They are brown, but we don't want black burgers. All right, I'm turning my temperature down because now the pan has got quite hot. I'm going to add a little bit more oil. And your caramelized onions probably, if they're done, you can turn them off the heat now. Excellent, excellent. So what I've done now is I've added all of my burgers back to the pan, and I've turned the heat down to a real low temperature. And all I'm wanting to do here is just get them warm. No more browning. So we brown at the beginning and then bringing them so that they're nice and just cooked not cooked because they're already cooked, but warm all the way through. You could add them at the end, like 10 minutes before your sweet potatoes are cooked. You could put them into the oven, but I suggest that you just do this down on a nice low heat. All right. Oh, this is great. My 17-year-old daughter works at a German restaurant, so she makes caramelized onions all the time. She's going to rate me, I know. She'll say, right, Mum, this is a X out of 10. Hopefully I do well. Great. All right, so my oven has just gone off. I'm going to pop my tray. I'm going to pop my tray of sweet potatoes into the oven. The timer is on for 20 minutes. My avocado is done. My beautiful caramelized onions are done. My burgers are done. We're good to eat. We're not good to eat till the sweet potatoes go. Fabulous. All right, have you got any last minute questions?